Okay, today we're going to talk about IV hydration. I know that if you're listening to this video, you've probably heard me talk to you about adding that to your practice because it is a good money maker. And again, at the end of the day, we want to sell your med spa for the highest price possible. So today I'm going to invite Justin Marti from Marti Law Group to talk about IV hydration and some of the things that you should know about. So, Justin, maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and your company, and then we'll take it from there into the IV hydration space.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jared. Glad we could finally make it happen. And long overdue. So yeah, so I'm Justin with Marti Law Group. I'm in Connecticut. I sit in Connecticut, but we work nationwide. We have some attorneys out west and down south. So we kind of cover all the bases, and our group is very focused on healthcare, and within healthcare, it's really a limited number of like verticals. You talked about med spa, so medical aesthetics is one, dentistry, optometry, veterinary medicine. So really a handful of areas within medicine, within healthcare that we do. And then from there, our practice is kind of split into two pieces, and it's really one side is pure M&A. So folks are buying or selling practices or med spas. We do that. And that, assist with the transaction, work with the brokers. And then the other side is really the compliance, and that's where this kind of comes in. I mean, IV hydration is becoming one of the hottest, fastest growing sectors, I think, of the scope of services that folks are offering, whether it's at a med spa or a wellness practice or, concierge kind of medicine. So I know that's a really hot topic, and so yeah, so it's kind of what we do. We study this stuff all day, every day, and we still can't keep up with all the regulations, but there are some themes, I think, across the country that we see in this area.
Great, thank you. Well, like I said, I know a lot of my clients, they don't have IV hydration added onto their menu yet. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about, again, IV hydration. Who can administer IVs?
So, you'll probably get tired of me saying this today, Jerry, but it depends on your state, or it depends, I should say, as our top lawyer answer to everything, right? It depends. But it really does depend on your state. And, being that we work across the country, we kind of see it all. I think to take a step back, what people forget or don't realize is that IVs contain drugs, right? They are concoctions of different drugs, and so therefore it is the practice of medicine. I think that right there gets like, to a lay person, they don't necessarily think of going to get an IV if they're dehydrated as like the practice of medicine, but it truly is. So right there, we know with healthcare regulations that puts things into a different bucket, right? It's not like therapy. Truly, it's a medical procedure. And so that affects who can do it, where it can be done, the setting, who can own that business that it's, where it's being done. So a lot of those considerations come into play. And it's all over the board from there. So in Texas, for example, a very strict corporate practice of medicine state. And for those who don't know, corporate practice of medicine, or CPOM, or if I say CPOM quickly, that's corporate practice of medicine. Essentially that's a state where a physician has to own a medical practice. Like a lay person can't own a medical practice. A corporation is not supposed to own a medical practice. Now, of course, corporations could be owned, it could be a PC or a PLLC, which is owned by a physician. That's allowed. But generally, when we talk about a CPOM state, a physician has to own, or in an independent practice state, they're called, you can have a nurse practitioner who may be able to own, their own practice. So essentially, though, you're pretty limited in who can own a practice. And so again, we're saying that administering these IVs is a practice of medicine. So you've gotten to be, and if you're in a CPOM state, again, California is a very strict CPOM state, Texas, like I talked about. These are places where even to get that IV, the person who owns that business has to be a physician, or maybe a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant in certain circumstances. But Texas is funny, super strict CPOM state. You have to be a physician own this thing. But oh, by the way, if the regulation is actually such that anyone can inject, and can do an injection for like a neurotoxin or something, as long as the physician believes they're properly trained, like the overseeing person. So it's just wacky, right? You have a very strict state, but yet anyone can inject. In other states, there's very, very heavy regulations on, who can inject a neurotoxin. So when it comes to IV hydration, like we have to look at all of this. We have to look at who can own the business? Are we in a CPOM state or are we not? But at the end of the day, again, like what regulators look at is like, this is the practice of medicine. And right now there's probably a shortage. There definitely is a shortage of resources to enforce this stuff. So you've got a lot of folks who are doing things non-compliant and kind of getting away with it. But I think that as IV hydration continues to like be the center and the focus of this, growing sector of med spas and procedures, like we're going to see states cracking down. We're actually already seeing it in a number of states. So really, short answer or a long-winded answer, but to answer the question is, it really depends on the state. And, we have to look at what the medical boards say and the nursing boards to really decipher like who can do it and, what kind of setting.
Great. Thank you for enlightening us on that. Um, okay, hold on. I'm gonna for right now. I think we need to break. I need to plug in my laptop. I just realized it's losing battery real quick. So
Go ahead. Go
I'm
ahead.
sure your assistant can chop this up right here, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I'll be
someone will
right
make it
back.
work.
Hold on.
All right.
Okay, hold on. Man, I thought I had that plugged in. I just realized my little battery light just came on there.
No, no,
Okay.
I get it. I get it.
All right, so let's see here. Let's get back to the questions here. Okay, so I'm gonna count down three, two, one, and then this way your assistant knows
All right.
to come
All
back
right.
in here. Okay, so three, two, one. Oh, Justin, thank you again. What about compounding? Maybe you can talk about compounding and what's allowed and so forth.
Yeah.
Because I
So
know that's a big thing now too. I've got a number of clients that have asked me about that too. Like, how does it get started with this? So maybe you can tell us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's another very, very hot topic that, kind of a subset of IV hydration is, can the provider, whichever level provider they are, like physician or a registered, can they compound? Can they like mix this stuff, in the bag, in the office, or does it have to be purchased from a compounding pharmacy or, another third party? So again, no surprise, depends on the state. Some states, allow for compounding in the office and others do not. I'm in Connecticut, like I talked about. And so here, there's every state has very regimented regulations on how this works. Like, in Connecticut, you can combine, I think it's two, you know, medications, right? Two drugs into this bag. And then if you want to do additional, like it has to be administered a certain way. So states are kind of all over the map in compounding. The thing I think folks need to realize is like, if you're allowed to compound in your office, in your practice, in your state, if your state allows it, you now are not just like under the jurisdiction of the medical board, and or the nursing board, but you now are under the jurisdiction of the pharmacy board, which, it's a lot of boards to be under, right? Like, so you've got to make sure you check your medical board regulations, the nursing regs, if you're a nurse practitioner or an RN, and now you've got to make sure that you're compliant from a pharmacy standpoint. So if you compound in the office, you generally have to do it in a certain manner. There has to be like a very sterile environment, and there's equipment that needs to be purchased. So people, I am always like very with our shocker. I'm a lawyer, so we're always like, the cynic. But I'm always like, you got to be really, really careful with administering IVs in general. And if you're compounding, we've got to be even more careful that you're compliant with the state because, like I said, you've just got all these folks who are overseeing what you're doing. Some states, again, they don't allow compounding in the office, in which case you'll have to purchase it from a certain pharmacy. And there's a lot of issues right now with kind of like, I don't know how to say, but just fake concoctions and pharmacies that are not kind of FDA approved. This all kind of falls under the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. So there's a lot of pharmacies that are out there that may not be compliant themselves or may not kind of have the FDA stamp of approval. Again, we've seen like fake kind of mixtures and we've seen this come into play with medical weight loss as well, which whole nother discussion for another day, but we've seen that with a lot of the drugs that are happening. Um, so you just have to be really careful. And as a practice owner, you know, you've got a lot to weigh. You've got to vet these pharmacies. If you're ordering from the pharmacy, you've got to make sure you're doing it right if you're doing it in the office. Again, I've hate the lawyer hat is always like, don't do this, don't do that. You know, it's a hugely profitable, you know, revenue stream. I think we know that it's really, you know, can be incredibly successful. We have some folks who are doing this like standalone business. All they do is IV hydration. We have others that layer it on in their med spa or their wellness practice. But like anything, you just have to be really careful because you're dealing with, you know, the practice of medicine. And so there's a lot of considerations there.
Yeah, which brings up another point. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I've seen a lot of these IV hydration clinics opening up, and I'll walk by them, and I'll see like this menu of all the stuff that they offer. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, the menu. I love the menu. I mean, they're very pretty and they, you know, they always look great and it's like ordering, you know, a drink at the bar. But I always tell my provider clients, like, remember, you're the provider, you know, so as much as that person comes in and they want to order off the list and, you know, they had the flu and they want the whatever, the booster, right? The immunity boost and whatever they cute name they give it, you have to remember you're the provider. So you have to do what we call a good faith exam, you know, an initial exam on this person or, you know, someone in the office with the proper licensure needs to do this, make sure they're a candidate for that treatment, and then decide like, okay, yeah, if they're a candidate for that treatment, they meet the requirements, absolutely, we can give them, you know, this concoction. But there are times when somebody wants something, and again, these menus are literally lists of drugs, and you know, it's very possible that that person may not be a candidate or they should not have that drug put in their body. So the provider really has to decide whether or not that, you know, chosen elixir is perfect, is okay for them or not. And if it's not okay, you know, we cannot be letting patients choose like, you know, they got to go with option B or C or whatever. We can tell them what we can put in their body as an IV. But really the provider just has to remember it's not the other way around. You know, people cannot, they can order off the menu or choose from the menu, but you've got to clear them because it's your medical license on the line. It's not, you know, the patient.
Yeah, it's really sad because I've heard of some cases where some people have actually died because of the IV hydration.
Yeah, there
So
was
yeah, it's very unfortunate.
there was a case in there's been a couple of cases now at one out of Texas I was speaking about earlier, and I mean you know, if there was something that could be done wrong, I think you know, it was all, everything was done wrong there in this particular case, sadly, and someone passed away, and because of things like that, you know, like understandably you're starting to see states really crack down on the regular. I mean, there's states where I forget if it's Mississippi or Louisiana, but you know, it's almost, unless you're in a hospital, you know, and like a hospital setting, you know, it's almost impossible to like be able to open and operate one of these IV type of clinics, because it's just gotten really strict, and I suspect we'll continue to see that across the country against, you know, as these unfortunate incidents happen and as states allocate the resources to it. Like right now, I mean, we both probably know tons of people who operate med spas and they may not be compliant, but there's not a huge enforcement action. But I think as we see these, you know, unfortunate events happen, the states have to start cracking down. So I think the stuff we're talking about today is to help people stay ahead of that, you know, rather than you get a letter from the dreaded letter from the Board of Medicine and now you gotta, you know, go answer.
Yes, exactly. Wow. Okay, so there's definitely a lot to think about here. So,
There
so
is.
what I'm hearing is, first of all, know your state's regulations, and again, I think that's where you can help a lot of clients out, right? Obviously, they're not attorneys; they're not going to know all the ins and outs. But is that's something you can help them with?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, we work across the country. We have we have an attorney on our team, actually soon to be two, who their job is research all day, every day.
Uh,
So, you know, the regulations change so quickly from state to state. So we're constantly, you know, evaluating the situation. And so yeah, it's kind of an obvious one, but like people really need to stay, you know, abreast of all these changes, and you know, working with a law firm who knows that doesn't hurt, right? So
Absolutely. That's why you're on with me. Yeah. And then I think number two, you had mentioned the good faith exam. right? Just making sure that taken care of before administering the IV. And
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
what else would you recommend? What would be maybe the third and final takeaway from our talk here today?
So I'd say, having really clear policies, procedures, patient consent forms, having your documentation really tight, which goes for any, you know, med spa or healthcare procedure. So important. I mean, really, like, when any sort of board action happens or lawsuit, it always goes back to, like, what did the patients sign? What information were they given? What did the intake paper look like? So and I can tell you too in a moment, we have a membership program in house, and our membership is very focused on one of the pieces of it is very focused on the consent forms and the policies and the procedures. So whether folks use us to get that paperwork or they have their own, you just want to make sure, again, like, you cannot be thorough enough. Every time a patient comes in for treatment, they should be signing another patient consent to be treated. Some folks figure they get it once and they're okay. It's like, every time they should sign a document saying they're consenting to treatment. And, if you have those things in place, if you're following Board of Medicine regulations or Board of Pharmacy, if you're compounding, like, you're in a better spot. I want to say you should be okay. You've got to constantly stay abreast of changes, but for the most part, you can, as a lawyer, like, you can never have enough documentation to protect yourself.
Okay, those are good points. Well, Justin, if someone wanted to get hold of you, how would they do that?
So we, very simple, our website is martilawgroup.com, all spelled out, Marti Law Group. I'm Justin at Marti Law Group, and you can always start there, shoot an email. We'd love to help you. Like I said, we have our model's a little bit different. We are very much a flat fee firm, which folks like. We try to not have surprises, and give people a price up front based upon whatever we feel the scope of work is, and that's it. Then we can talk as much as we need to. We also have our membership plan that I alluded to earlier, which is pretty cool. A lot of our med spa clients are now switched over to membership, where every month we're looking at their practice, we're digging into, again, the consent forms, the changing regulations, dealing with maybe a patient complaint that came up, like, whatever it is, we're constantly evaluating, and we'll work with their financial partner if they have a CPA or a fractional CFO or something. So it's really cool. It gives us we have videos, we have, like, all these tutorials now. So it's been really fun to help folks kind of grow and prepare to, hopefully call you and then sell their practice. So that's a lot of what we're doing. Again, go to the website. We're on all the social media handles as well. So shoot us an email and it would be great to chat.
All right, great. Justin, thank you for your time and thank you for all this good information. For all of you guys that are again thinking about adding IV hydration, definitely call Justin up. There's a lot of stuff that you don't want to do without an attorney behind you, especially an attorney that specializes in IV hydration and medical spas. So, Justin, again, thank you for the time, and we look forward to speaking with you again.
Awesome. Thanks, Jerry. Thanks for having me.
All right, take care.